it's like to help with sort of mental health. It's a group of guys that kind of meet up at Windermere Lake.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what even now, it's coming up to December and they'll still do it every Sunday. Turn up at 9 o'clock in the morning, you get there, you have a little chat, a bit of a get together, then just go for a swim in the lake. And the first couple of times I did it was fucking awful. I'd get up to my knees, and then as soon as it gets to your nether regions, you want to get out. Yeah. And then once you get past that to your chest, you start breathing fast. It's like, right, just keep calm.
I think
slow.
The breathing is the
breathing is the hardest bit, yeah. But then once you're in, like you said, it's cold, and then after a while, it kind of feels kind of warm because your body starts to heat. But as soon as you get out, it just feels amazing.
Yeah,
like I remember get up and hammer a lot of coffee in the morning.
Yeah, well, again, I don't watch things like the news and stuff like that, but I watch a lot of Joe Rogan, and he had a guy on there saying, and I think they were talking about, I don't know, like a 1 to 10 of highs from drugs to sex to chocolate and a cold was like cold showers and cold.
Somebody said that to me as well.
And it literally was that high up, and they said, but where you've got crashes on the others, you tend to be on a high much longer, and it's so yes, I've started doing that. And then by the time I'm normally then, after all that, I've done all that, and I'm back in the office by about 7:30, 8, and then I'm ready to start the day. So for me, it sets me up for the day.
Yeah.
I think, though, using kind of that metaphor that you used kind of a couple of times throughout that conversation, of climbing Ben Nevis, your own sort of personal life, Chris, as well, you did struggle for a while, and you've been very open about that. And how sort of, I think, even just from talking to you and seeing you now, like, I think how you kind of turned what was kind of maybe a slightly negative time in your life into such a positive, and the person you are and the inspiration you are to everyone around you today. How did you get out of that kind of place and, get yourself into the kind of how focused you are now?
So when I was in my teenage years, I was very much into weight training. And back then I wanted to be a bodybuilder or whatever it was I wanted to be, and I damaged my right wrist. And at the time, I'd been to, back then it'd be the doctors and hospitals, all NHS, and the long and short of it was they told me that I'd never train again. And it was like so I had a gym membership, so I thought, sod this, and I carried on training. And my girlfriend at the time used to call me Sparky Sparrowlegs, and I trained legs 3 times a week, calves 3 times a week, main legs twice a week. And I just built my legs until they overshadowed my top up, because it's like I wanted to get me money's worth out of this gym membership. And whilst I was in the gym, there was a guy in there who was all affiliated with the British Bodybuilding Association and knew all the top bodybuilders. And I remember him sort of saying to me, well, there's this new latest drug they're all on in America, and he called it Genabol. And he said, inject this, and it's got qualities in it to help repair. Now, at the time, I was prepared to try anything. So I took this drug and I started injecting it. And again, all hindsight now, I was probably, what was I then? Maybe 19, 20. And what he was doing was it was an injectable little ampoule. He was peeling the stickers off, unbeknown to me, called it Genabol. So when I was trying to research it, because I don't like taking anything without a lot of research, I couldn't find the stuff. So I couldn't find it, so I couldn't research it. And it all fit with his story. It was so new, no one knows about it. It's all, all the top bodybuilders, right? Anyway, by the time I found out what it was, turned out it was just morphine. It was morphine. It was used in hospitals and ambulances for head injury. It was called Nubane. So by the time I found out what it was, and this is what I was saying about addiction, the problem with addiction is by the time you actually you accept the fact you're an addict, you're way down there. If something could be done where people could understand they've got an addiction before the addiction kicks in, you get a lot of people nip it in the bud, but unfortunately you can't. So by the time I realised that of what the drug was, and we found out that what the drug was, and because I started talking to other people, and they'd all been conned, all for different reasons, given everyone a different bloody reason this guy had of what it did, and we were all on it. And again, being a complete dumbass, he was selling me these vials for £45 each. Turned out you could buy a box of 10 for like 50 quid. He was making a fortune. He's dead now, bless him. But it was by the time I realised, so it was a bit, and back then, it wasn't something you could openly discuss. You couldn't, because I live in a village, so I couldn't really go to the village doctor, because you knew everyone in the village would know it by the end of it. So I couldn't really discuss it. So back then we had in Milton Keynes, you had what they call Pegasus, was the drug rehab clinic, and I went to them. But because it was it was genuinely quite a new drug, and no one had ever been addicted to this thing before. They couldn't get any information from the DuPont, which was the company that made it, and DuPont wouldn't accept it was possible to get addicted to. And I've got a real bugbear with pharmaceutical companies and how they con everyone into stuff. So the drug rehab centre went through to DuPont to say, look, we've got a whole spate of people addicted to this, and they wouldn't accept it was possible to get addicted. So they wouldn't release the information so they could work out a plan of action to get us all off it. So, that went on for a while. But I was a drug addict, I would say, for 7 years. And I forget what they call it now, but I worked. I worked, I had a very good career. It didn't stop me doing that. But because it was a pre-med, I was monged out a lot of evenings. So I slept quite a lot. And I wonder whether that's possibly why I'm so anti-sleep now, because I probably, I might have slept for 10 hours at night and then worked and went to the gym. So that certainly was a part of my life where, when you're addicted to anything, I learned very quickly, perhaps not very quickly if it was 7 years, but I learned what the problem was. And I remember trying hypnotherapy, and I thought she was just going to wave a watch, and I was going to, that's it, solved, no effort, it's done. And I remember, and this really helped me learn about addiction. So what she did in the first week, he said, right, this first week between our appointments is, I want you to write down every time you take a shot. So I'd go home and, I'd say, right, I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go for a wee, and I'd take a shot then, and then I have another one at 7, and then I have another one at 10, and worked it all out. And it was sometimes 10 shots a day. It was ridiculous. But so for instance, week 1, she'd go, right, what we need to do is next week, you're going to move the stuff downstairs. So when you wake up and take a shot when you're half asleep, not even realizing you're doing it, we'd get rid of that one. And that straight away got me down to 9, say. Week 2 was, you're going to go down, before you have a shot, you're going to go downstairs, make yourself a cup of tea, have your cup of tea, and then you can have your shot. And so very slowly, and I said to you before, James, about obstacles, she started putting obstacles in the way that you weren't really thinking of. So you weren't sitting there thinking, I want my drugs, because, the whole thing was that's all you could think of. Is very quickly, we started putting obstacles in the way without you even realising it. And over the course of probably about 2 months, we got it down for about 10 shots a day, down to about 2. And it's like, right, that's what you're physically addicted to. That's where your body's saying, I need my fix.
Yeah, retraining your brain.
Yes, and she said, now we're trying to get you off 2 shots, not 10. Over the course of just doing that. So, and I had I got a female friend of mine. I haven't seen her for a long time, but she was an alcoholic, and I spent a lot of time with her trying to teach her. And I used to say to her, it's like having a devil and an angel on each shoulder. One is giving you advice. It is constantly putting you in the way of whatever your addiction is. And the other one's been sort of shouted out of trying to keep you off and put the obstacles in the way. And I was saying to her, look, go to the gym, take up swimming. I said, first of all, you're going to get healthy, but secondly, you can't have a bottle of vodka floating in the pool next to you. So you're trying to find things to keep your mind. Because I remember many a time I'd get through the day, I think, bloody, I've not even had a shot today because I've been so busy. I've not even thought about it. So yes, that really, that was I did a home detox, and I always remember that I did one home detox, and they gave you this stuff. You took these tablets, and they warned you to say, right, these tablets take 2 days to come out of your system. So the theory was for you to take a shot of your drug, you've got to wait 2 days. So you might think, I desperately need it. But you can't take it, you wait 2 days. By the end of the 2 days, you've got another, and you probably won't take it. And they said, don't ever take a shot on this stuff. And I just didn't listen. I was curled up in a fucking ball because of the way it reacted against the drug, because it's trying not to let the morphine hit. So I think I learned a lot about myself, and this is why I've always said the boys saved me, because towards the end of that, little Tristan here was announced that he was on the way, and as you know, James, I talked to loads of people about what's it like having a child, and no one could explain until that day they turn up and you hold that little person in your arms. There's no way of explaining, but suddenly it was like, I can't be fucking about with this, and my whole mindset changed really, and that's what I always say.